Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. The declaration of faith, I bear witness there is no deity but God, Allah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, is repeated in Muslims' prayers several times a day. All true messengers of God have invited people to believe in oneness of God. As such, we have religions which consider themselves as monotheistic faiths. The classical definition of monotheism, according to Oxford, is the doctrine or belief that there is only one God. According to Britannica, belief in the existence of one God or in oneness of God. And according to Webster, the doctrine or belief that there is but one God. However, how we define God differs from the one monotheistic faith to another. Today we want to discuss the Islamic definition followed by Islamic perspective and belief in oneness of God and its far-reaching effects. And finally, what does it really mean when we say La ilaha illallah, there is no deity but God, Allah? What's the implication? Oneness of God is the central aspect of Islam, and everything within this faith revolves around it. When we declare there is no deity worthy of worship but Allah, it is the foundation on which Islamic acts of worship are built upon. It means that God has no partner, sharik. He exists by himself, that is expressed by the Arabic word tawheed, oneness, which in the Islamic context means the oneness of God. Absolute oneness in his worship and absolute oneness in his lordship. Tawheed is fundamental doctrine capturing the oneness of God in every sense of the expression, which entails a set of definitions and descriptions beyond what is listed for monotheism in the dictionaries. Before discussing the Islamic definition of monotheism, Tawheed, and what La ilaha illallah entails, let's first talk about a historic perspective on monotheism. Historically speaking, believing in the Creator and Sustainer has been the oldest, most obvious, and widely accepted idea in mankind's history. So obvious that there's no need of debate or proof because it was considered experiential and within man's nature or predisposition. Mankind never observed or experienced an effect without a cause, an action without an actor. Even when a desert dweller, a child, or an oblivious person hears a sound or sees something move, naturally and without thinking, follows it to find the source. Anytime we find something as simple as a mud hut, a wood shack, or a book in the middle of a desert, we think there was a maker for each. Then who in the right mind would believe that this universe, this earth, the mountains, the forests, and the oceans have no maker? Or all creatures in them, including a human being, with such complex makeup of flesh, muscles, bones, heart, brain, nerves, and intellect, was caused by an accident or without a maker. So there's no denying of causation. We have the light and the heat as effects caused by the sun every day the sun comes up. We have the effects of gravity caused by Earth It is Earth's gravity that keeps you and I on the ground and what makes things fall. Therefore, no matter how many reasons, theories, and excuses they bring to disprove existence of God, they cannot reject or disprove the above facts and the evident reality of cause and effects, which is the basis for human thinking and the fundamental understanding of science. You never even think about building a house or a car without planning, designing, ordering material, and assembling per design. The entire experimental science, such as physics, chemistry, geology, biology, economics, social science, etc., is about studying phenomena in order to understand the cause and effect and the relationship between them. Even mathematics, which is a science of exacts and certainties, is often about making up assumptions and postulations and getting certain results, then studying or deriving the relationship between assumptions and rules, or relationships between variables and constants in the form of equations. So if a scientist decides to change something as little as a sign on an equation, or if he ignores a digit within a number, or says he can produce ice-cold water from a bucket of hot water without any heat exchange process, people will call him silly or insane. Yet, we have some scientists today who have allowed themselves to call this elaborate universe, this complex ecosystem on Earth, and human body and mind without a maker and without an intelligent design behind it. Of course, if they could show us one small example of it, a self-created, self-directed, self-sustained being without any need, we could then perhaps generalize it to other things. A simple look at our own body and mind proves this point. A look at ourselves, because we are above and beyond other creatures on Earth in terms of intellect, knowledge, and free will. When we realize we have had absolutely no role, no intervention, starting from the formation of our fetus to development of limbs till the point we were born, or even in adult age, after our intellectual development and physical ability and maturity, our survival functions such as breathing, digestion, blood and oxygen circulation, etc., is not controlled by us. It is controlled by other than us, who is present and guaranteed to be in full control, whether we are alert or not, whether we are asleep or awake. He creates us through our fetus, forms us, feeds us, brings us to this world, and sustains us, then takes us from this world without asking or for our help or permission on any of it. Therefore, when we and the rest of existence, from material to energies to animals and plants, small or large, share the fact we are all effects of the main cause, hence created and obey the creator's laws, we have no right to claim there's no maker or consider ourselves to be creators and sustainers in general or specific, or attribute our creation to someone or something else by accident or on purpose. Because no matter how we look at it or to what we appeal to, we end up in a dead end and have no choice but to acknowledge our weakness, dependence, and insignificance and bow down in all humbleness to the main cause, the great, the powerful, and able Creator, and bear witness, Allah, la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the living, the eternal one. And it's because of these reasons that mankind has recognized God from the beginning and has seen himself weak and dependent, but because of lack of full knowledge regarding the natural phenomena, their cause and effects, and the relationship between them, plus the fact his experience and knowledge had not reached the point where he could connect the dots and understand the generality of natural laws and the universal order, it did not occur to him that this universe is operating based on unified natural laws and order, in accordance to a single creator and governor who is nothing like humans or other forms of life surrounding man. Hence, for every segment of nature known to man and any variety he came across, he assumed a separate creator. In other words, for any known phenomenon, he imagined a separate and specific creator. For example, for the flat land, one God, for the sea, another, for mountain, another, for beauty, another, and so on, as he saw fit. In addition, the unseen Godheads were contrasted with the sun, the moon, and the clouds, and were worshipped accordingly. Or they would create human-like or animal-like faces and statues combined with their own imaginations and superstitions and worship them as their idols. It was in later generations that this belief system began to change. This happened principally because people began to make the assumption that divinity was inherent in natural phenomena. They wondered at the loftiness of the mountains, the unceasing flow of the rivers, and the extraordinary brilliance of the sun and the moon, and took it as things possessed of such awesome attributes must necessarily share in God's divinity. Even men gifted with special talents likewise came to be included in the category of the divine. They were supposed to be incarnations of God Himself. It was in this manner that the concept of polytheism crept into the religious system. In agreement with the view that human religions began with Tawheed or monotheism, and polytheism as a later development, the basic mission of all prophets who made their appearance at intervals in this world was to lead people away from the worship of many gods, back to worship of the one God. In other words, to turn them away from glorification of creatures toward reverence for the Creator. Before the advent of Islam, the ancient civilizations such as Greeks, Egyptian, Roman, and Persian, all were polytheistic in their beliefs. Polytheism and superstition looked upon idols and creatures as deities and encouraged their worship. Man considered the moon, the sun, other planets, winds, rivers, snake, cows, fire, mountain, etc. as deities. These natural objects inspired man to bow down before them rather than try to conquer them or look at them as part of creation. Holding the moon to be sacred was a major obstacle to even thinking about conquering it. The supremacy of polytheism was brought to an end by Islam, which replaced it with true monotheism, making it the dominant creed of the times. Of course, the polytheists of that time did believe in Allah as the creator. However, initially they looked upon these idols as representatives of God or intermediaries. Hence, thought they could get close to God only by going through them. But over time, they considered them as partners to God, hence worshipped them and appealed to them for help. Only Islam was able to displace these idols and create the intellectual frame of mind or revolution in thinking. It was this call for Tawheed which provoked the anger of the Meccan authority, because they realized that Muhammad, peace be upon him, posed a threat to their social, political, and religious makeup with this call. Now let's discuss the Islamic definition and description of monotheism, and what does the declaration of La ilaha illallah entail, some of which are also mentioned in the Quran. We're going to discuss these in detail in order to make it crystal clear as to how Islam defines God and monotheism, and what it is and what it's not. Number one, Allah alone is the creator, Lord, and sustainer of all creation. Nothing can be more than him in any respect, or else he would be less than something, which would then mean he would have limits, which would then be incompatible with him being the ultimate one or primary cause. As such, all need him, and he is free of all needs and self-subsisting. Number two, Allah is unique, and there's nothing like him in his essence, nor is there any of his essence in any other beside him. Number three, he is everlasting, without beginning and without end, omnipresent, unbounded by time and space. Number four, Allah alone is worthy of all worship and lordship. Number five, he is the ultimate source and has many attributes, some of which we can relate to. However, his dimension in all his attributes can be expressed in terms of infinity. Science of math acknowledges infinity as a mathematical fact designated by a sign. While we cannot comprehend what infinity really means, we can acknowledge it to be only natural, because we are finite, and the finite cannot comprehend the infinite or infinite. Therefore, God can comprehend us, but we cannot comprehend him beyond knowing him through his signs and manifestations throughout his creation. As such, he is both manifest and hidden. Number six, Allah is one and one for all. He has no partners, no equals, and no rivals, has no child, nor is he child of anyone. Since infinity cannot be divided by 2 or 3 or more, a mathematical fact, it follows that there cannot be 1 or 2 or 3 or more gods. That is, there cannot be one God for Jews, 1, 2, or 3 for Christians, another set for Hindus, and perhaps another for the godless. Oneness of God, or Tawheed, is the foundation of Islamic faith. Number 7, Allah is not a body nor a measurable or divisible substance. He is neither accidental or random form, nor do accidentals exist in him. Number 8, Here are additional qualities. As the creator of heavens and the earth and life and death, God sees and hears everything. He's the ultimate judge in the judgment day. His knowledge is perfect. His will is beyond challenge, and his power is irresistible. All such qualities are manifest in his creation. Number 9, Allah is not identifiable with man, with whom his only connection is the fact he created man. Man belongs to him and will return to him. Among many verses in the Quran, verses 23-24 in chapter 59 captures some of these. He is Allah, other than whom there is no deity, the sovereign, the pure, the perfection, the bestower of faith, the overseer, the exalted in might, the dominant, the superior. Exalted is Allah above whatever they associate with him. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the fashioner. To him belong the best names. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth is exalting him, and he is the exalted in might, the wise. Number 10, finally, in Islam, Allah is the specific name for God, with capital G, which is unique and nothing else can be called Allah. It has no gender and cannot be plural. In a conversation, however, the pronoun he is used to refer to God, but of course, it does not carry any gender connotation because God is beyond such classifications. It is arbitrary and limited only to a linguistic usage. By the way, linguistically, we should note, because we do not have a specific name for God in English, like Allah in Arabic, it is necessary to capitalize the word God to distinguish it from other man-made gods signified by lowercase g. It goes without saying, when Muslims refer to Allah, they are referring to the one and the same God with capitalized G in English. These are some of the fundamental definitions of God according to Islam, which lead to Tawheed being the central aspect of Islamic belief. It was perhaps the same thought process that led Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, to find God. While he had natural inclination to the idea and was convinced about falsity of the idols his people carved and worshipped, he went through a deductive reasoning, first by considering articles of nature for godhood, articles such as the sun, the moon, and the stars, only to find that all were obedient to certain laws. So he pondered, then concluded on the one who set those laws. While Tawheed means the oneness of God, it must be stressed that it radically differs from pantheistic or monotheism notion that all forms of existence are a diverse manifestation of one and the same reality. On the contrary, the oneness of God as defined in Islam means that there is only one being of the nature of God. All other things of the universe, be it physical or non-physical, are the creations of this one God. They are not citizens or partners in the divine creator. In Islamic theology, one can strive to get close to God, but can never join or become as one with God. Without believing in God as defined above, the rest of articles of faith in Islam, such as prophets, scriptures, and the Day of Judgment, become meaningless. So, same thing with the acts of worship. laws, limits, moral teachings, etc. Because Tawheed, or La ilaha illallah, there is no deity except Allah, provides the foundation for a complete system of life for the Muslim community in all its details. By the same token, if the system of life is constructed based on another foundation or a mixed foundation, then that community cannot be considered Islamic. As the Quran says, إِنَّ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. The command belongs to God alone. He commands you not to worship anyone except Him. That is the correct religion or right way of life. Or وَقَالَ اللَّهُ لَا تَتَّخِذُوا إِلَٰهَيْنِ اثْنَيْنِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ إِلَٰهٌ وَاحِدٌ. And Allah has said, do not take for yourselves two deities. God is only one. In another verse, describes how everything beside Him is transient and finite. وَلَا تَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَٰهًا آخَرَ لَا إِلَٰهَ إِلَّا هُوَ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٍ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. And do not invoke with Allah another deity. There is no deity except Him. Everything will be perished except He. All other deities are falsehood, none worthy of worship, even if they are considered as intermediaries. This is why the opposite of Tawheed, which is shirk, associating partner with God, is the gravest sin in Islam, because it is the gravest injustice against God and oneself. All worship with sincerity and full devotion belong to Allah, the Deity. The distinctive feature of Muslim community is that all its affairs are regulated based on worship of God alone. The declaration of faith expresses this principle in beliefs, devotional acts, and regulations. A person who does not believe in oneness of God does not worship God alone. Anyone who performs devotional acts for someone other than God or in addition to Him does not worship God alone. Further distinctive feature of Muslim is to echo following verses as a result of his or her declaration of faith and servitude. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, indeed, my prayer, my acts of devotion, my life and my death are for Allah, Lord of people of the world. لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. He has no partner, and this I have been commanded, and I am the foremost to be among the submitters. Only those whose hearts are purified can come together as a group of people whose beliefs and acts of worship are completely free of servitude to anyone other than God, can call themselves Muslims or submitters. So when we say there's no one worthy of worship other than God, we are not referring to some abstract concept of a creator who just created us and left us to our own. And in Islam, God is involved in our lives 24/7. He's always near us, cares for us, and we owe our existence to Him alone. Islam established a close and direct relationship between the Creator and His creation, in which no mediating power plays any role. God's absolute unity is reflected in the unity of His creation, in which each individual part is in harmony with all of the others. The Quran thus enjoins us to affirm in chapter 112, قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Say He is Allah, the One, Allah the Eternal, Absolute. He does not beget, nor is He begotten, nor there is any equivalent to Him. Chapter 112, entitled Ikhlas, gives us the essence of monotheism. Not only does it tell us of the oneness of God, but also makes it clear what the oneness of God means. This chapter presents the concept of God purified of all human interpolation, because prior to advent of Islam, tampering with the sacred text had caused the concept of God to be distorted for all would-be believers. Islam taught that God is not many. God alone is the creator, sustainer, and Lord of the universe, including human beings. He is the sole possessor of all powers. He is supreme and omnipresent. That is, although invisible to man's eyes, He knows everything. He sees everything. He has full control over everything and is present everywhere, which means none of His creation, be it a statue, a prophet, an imam, or a saint, can be everywhere and see everything and control everything. The whole creation depends on Him. He depends on none. He, in His own being, is all-powerful and above to beget or begotten or having equal or partner. That is why the concept of one God or Tawheed is the actual beginning and fundamental to the theological structure of Islam. As the seed or root is to a tree, Tawheed is to Islam. The Islamic theology is a multifaceted expression of a single basic concept. For monotheism in Islam does not mean simply belief in one God, but in God's oneness in all respects, which includes worshiping Him alone and depending on Him alone. Among many verses in the Quran, verse 255 of chapter 2 captures it. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the living, the eternal one. Neither slumber nor sleep overtakes Him. To Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. Who can intercede with Him except by His permission? He knows all about the affairs of men at present and in the future. They can grasp only that part of His knowledge which He wills. His throne is as vast as the heavens and the earth, and the preservation of both does not tire Him. He is the exalted, the immense one. We have had an entire lecture dedicated to explaining tafsir of this verse. So we will not go into details of it today. What about worship? The Islamic monotheism is the doctrine that all power lies in the hands of one God, that He alone deserves to be worshipped. No act in the nature of worship is lawful unless directed toward Him alone. It is God who fulfills our needs. It is God alone who is behind the functioning of the entire universe. Hence, we connect to Him directly. Here are a couple of other verses from the Quran which very clearly state the concept of God. In chapter 6 we have, "This is your God, Lord. There is no God but He, the creator of all things." Therefore, worship him alone. In chapter 2 again, we have, your God is one God. There's no God but He. He is the compassionate, the merciful. Tawheed has two aspects to it. Tawheed fi zat and Tawheed fi sifat. Oneness of being or essence and oneness of attributes. As such, divisibility of the divine attributes is totally alien to Islam, and associating partners in his lordship and his attributes is idolatry, shirk, which is the gravest injustice and sin in Islam. The attributes of God are called al-asma'ul husna, or the excellent names, some of which are mentioned in the Quran, as the Quran itself says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. And to Allah belong the excellent names, so invoke him by them. This means that in addition to the fact that there's only one being who is divine and has divine powers, there's also the fact that no one else can have a share in or lay claim to God's attributes. These include the power of knowing all things, governing all things, encompassing all things, and sustaining the universe with all its countless bodies in motion. No creation of God, including angels, messengers, or saints, have any power over the events of the universe. As the Quran says in chapter 7, He covers the night with the day, swiftly they follow one another. And He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, subjected by His command. Unquestionably, His is the creation and the command. Blessed is Allah, Lord of all creatures. In recognition of His uniqueness, the Quran opens with the following declaration as chapter 1, the opening. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe, the compassionate, the merciful, sovereign of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, and to you alone we turn for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those whom you have favored, not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. This chapter captures the spirit of Tawheed, hence is recited in every daily prayer by Muslims as they thank Him, call Him by His attributes, reaffirm that they worship Him alone, and appeal to Him alone for His help, and ask Him for His guidance. Even though every atom of creation attests to God's essence, none can perceive His essence. Why? Because, by definition, God is all-encompassing, muhit. Hence, the encompassed, muhat, cannot be perceived, cannot perceive the essence, thought of the one who encompasses all. As the Quran says, لا يحيطون به علما. But they do not encompass it in knowledge. So then how one can get to know Him? We can get to know Him by as much as we see in manifestation of His attributes and His signs as described in His holy book, the Quran, and His Prophet. Then we say this is as far as we know of Him, as God's essence is beyond our perception and description. By the way, the journey of getting to know God never stops, as we must continue on this open path, because the more we get to know Him, the more we become His humble servants, know our place in the creation, and appreciate His favors. Tawheed helps us go through this journey of getting to know our Creator by directly connecting to Him. As the Quran says in chapter 41, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ. Say, O Muhammad, I am only a man like you, to whom it's been revealed that your God is one God. So take a straight path to Him and seek His forgiveness. And woe to those who associate others with Allah. Islam especially insists on the Tawheed in worship, oneness in worship, because, as said, even idolaters did believe in Allah as the Creator. However, they associated partners with Him in worship and attributes and served other than God. And then there are those who say they believe in God but not believe in any of the messengers, as they think they were liars. So basically, they think God created them, but without any religion, instruction, and examples to follow. They think He just created them and left them as they were, without any plan, goal, etc. A hands-off God, a God without any influence or effect. Such a God cannot be a real God. The real God is the one who has sent His messengers, expressing His goals, His laws, His plan, His purpose of our creation, and His instructions on how to live a righteous life. In other words, a hands-on God, one whom we are involved with 24/7. Tawheed in Islam not only introduces one God and ways to get to know Him, but also teaches how to worship Him alone. If this second piece is missing, then there's not much difference between one who accepts God and one who does not. One says God exists, but does not obey Him and worship Him. The other one says God, there's no God, hence he does not obey Him and worship. The major credit comes from obeying God in practice, worshiping Him alone, and being His true servant. That is why Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. And I did not create the jinn and the mankind except to worship me. The word لِيَعْبُدُونِ means to worship me, to obey me, not just to get to know me. Getting to know Him is the precursor to worship Him. It is because of all the above that our faith is called Islam, meaning submission and surrender to God. One God. Hence, anyone who submits and surrenders to God, to this doctrine that we talked about, is called a Muslim, a submitter. In fact, according to Islam, the message of all earlier prophets was one and the same: to worship and believe in one God and Lord. All true messengers of God were honorable and humble servants of God who submitted and surrendered to Him. As such, they were all Muslims. Islamically, there's only one God, hence there should only be one religion. Therefore, the Quran says in chapter 3, say, O people of the scripture, come to a word that is equitable between us and you, that we will not worship except Allah and not associate anything with Him, and not take one another as lords instead of Allah. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are Muslims, submitting to Allah. So, all other principles of faith, morals, and injunctions revolve around a focal point, which is Tawheed, or oneness of God. as declared by La ilaha illallah. Tawheed was the basis for the transformation brought by the prophets, which started within one's heart and mind and returned mankind's attention to the source of power and life, harmonizing body and soul with man's own nature. As such, the messengers of God never despaired and kept engaged with their nations till the last moment, through all kinds of hardship and oppositions, as their stories attest. We stop at this point and we'll pick up inshallah next time with analysis of what are the far-reaching effects of La ilaha illallah. How did Tawheed then and how can it now transform people? Is there a human dimension related to Tawheed? Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.